There are compliments in baseball. And then there are verdicts. A compliment is what a manager says after a good outing. Something polished, something expected, something that fills the post-game press conference and disappears by morning. Warm words from people whose job includes saying warm words. A verdict is different. A verdict comes from someone who has no obligation to give it. Someone who has earned the right to be silent, whose career, whose rings, whose legacy speak loudly enough that he owes nothing to anyone. Someone for whom praise is not a professional courtesy but a personal statement, chosen carefully, delivered honestly, and weighted by everything he has seen and done across a lifetime in this sport. Clayton Kershaw is that person. 3 Cy Young Awards. A career ERA that belongs in another era of baseball. A left arm that rewrote what a Dodger pitcher could be and gave an entire generation of fans a definition of dominance they measured everything else against. When Clayton Kershaw watches a pitcher and says nothing, that is news. When he watches a pitcher and nods, that means something. But when Clayton Kershaw watches a pitcher work through 7 innings, pile up 8 strikeouts, and then looks a reporter in the eye and says he is worthy of being called an ace, that is not a compliment. That is a verdict. And today, that verdict belongs to Shohei Ohtani. Before we talk about what Kershaw said, we have to talk about what Ohtani did. Because Kershaw's words did not arrive in a vacuum. They were not generated by reputation or affection or the casual admiration one baseball legend extends to another. They were earned. Pitch by pitch. Inning by inning. Through 7 innings of work so precise, so controlled, so completely dominant that the only honest response available to anyone watching was exactly what Kershaw gave. 7 innings. 8 strikeouts. And an ERA that has refused, through every start, through every challenge the league has thrown at him, to climb above 1.00. Let that last number sit for a moment. An ERA below 1.00 is not a hot streak. It is not a small sample size artifact that the analytics community will dismiss once the innings pile up. At this stage of the season, with this many starts logged, an ERA below 1.00 is a statement about consistency so extreme that the sport barely has a language for it. It means that across all the innings Ohtani has pitched, across all the batters he has faced, across all the different lineups and ballparks and weather conditions and game situations, opposing teams have scored almost nothing. Not occasionally. Not in most games. In essentially all of them. The 8 strikeouts against this particular opponent were not a surprise to anyone who has been watching. What they were was confirmation. Another data point added to a picture that has been building all season, a picture of a pitcher who is not just healthy, not just returning, not just performing adequately after Tommy John surgery and a long road back. A picture of a pitcher who is, right now, among the most difficult arms to face in Major League Baseball. Kershaw has seen every version of pitching dominance this sport can produce. He has lived inside it for the majority of his career. When he looks at what Ohtani is doing and calls it ace-worthy, he is comparing it to a standard he built himself. That standard is extraordinarily high. And Ohtani is clearing it. He's worthy of being called an ace. 6 words. Simple construction. No poetry, no drama, no elaborate framing designed to make the quote more impressive than it is. Just a direct, honest evaluation from a man who does not dress things up. That simplicity is exactly what makes it powerful. In baseball, the word ace carries specific meaning. It is not given to pitchers who have one good month. It is not awarded based on velocity alone, or strikeout totals alone, or any single metric that can be manipulated by a favorable schedule or a brief peak of performance. An ace is a pitcher you trust when the game matters most. A pitcher whose presence in the rotation changes how an opponent prepares, how a manager manages, how a series unfolds. An ace is the answer to a question every serious baseball team asks themselves when October approaches: who do we send out there when we cannot afford to lose? Kershaw was that pitcher for the Dodgers for over a decade. He knows what the word means from the inside. He knows what it costs to earn it and what it demands to keep it. He has lived the weight of being the guy, the one the organization builds its pitching identity around, the one whose name is written at the top of the rotation card not because he is next in the schedule but because he is first in trust. When he extends that word to Ohtani, he is not being generous. He is being precise. He is saying that what he has watched Ohtani do, the preparation, the execution, the consistency, the ability to go 7 innings and still have 8 strikeouts and still have an ERA below 1.00, meets the definition. Not approximately. Not almost. Meets it. For Ohtani, those 6 words from Kershaw carry a different kind of weight than any stat line or award or media ranking. Because they come from someone who was there before him, who held the standard before him, who knows exactly what it takes to stand where Ohtani is now standing. Kershaw's verdict opened a door. And through that door, the local media walked, not cautiously, not with the measured language of analysts waiting for more data, but with the kind of energy that builds when a story finally has permission to be told at full volume. The coverage that followed Ohtani's 7-inning, 8-strikeout performance was not routine post-game reporting. It was a reckoning. Column after column, broadcast after broadcast, platform after platform, all arriving at the same place through different routes, all saying some version of the same thing. This is real. This is not a narrative we are projecting onto potential. This is a pitcher, performing, right now, at a level the sport has rarely seen. What the media storm reveals is not simply enthusiasm for Ohtani, that enthusiasm has existed for years and is not new. What it reveals is the release of a tension that has been building since the moment his pitching return was announced. Because there was always a question mark. Tommy John surgery is not a minor procedure. The road back from it is long and uncertain and littered with pitchers who returned at a diminished level, who found that the arm they had before was not exactly the arm they had after, who discovered that the gap between recovery and dominance was wider than anyone had promised. The surgery repairs. It does not guarantee. So when Ohtani was announced as returning to the mound, the media covered it with excitement, but also with a kind of held breath. A collective awareness that what he had done before the surgery would have to be proven again. That the reputation would have to be rebuilt on the foundation of new performance. 7 innings. 8 strikeouts. ERA below 1.00. Kershaw watching and calling him an ace. The held breath has been released. And what came out of it was a storm, because that is what happens when a story that people have been waiting to tell finally has everything it needs to be told completely. Statistics in baseball are often argued about. ERA is no exception. It has its critics, its limitations, its context dependencies that analysts spend considerable energy explaining. Park factors, defense behind the pitcher, inherited runners, all of these complicate the picture that ERA paints. But there is a threshold below which the arguments stop. Below 1.00, ERA does not need defending. It does not need context or qualification or analytical framing. Below 1.00, the number speaks in a language that every version of baseball understanding, traditional, analytical, casual, expert, hears the same way. It means almost no one is scoring against him. For Ohtani to be sitting below that threshold at this stage of the season, as a returning pitcher, in the most competitive league on the planet, facing lineups that have had time to study him and prepare for him and develop approaches against him, is extraordinary in a way that the word extraordinary barely captures. Opposing teams know what is coming. They have the data. They have the video. They have coaches who have built entire game plans around the question of how to score off Ohtani. And they are still not scoring. That is the definition of dominance. Not talent. Not potential. Not promise. Dominance. Active, present, ongoing dominance, happening right now, in real games, against real competition. Kershaw's 6 words and the media storm that followed them are simply the sport catching up to what the ERA has been saying all along. Clayton Kershaw did not need to say what he said. He could have smiled at the question, offered something diplomatic, kept his true assessment private the way veterans often do. He has earned the right to silence. His opinion was not required. He gave it anyway. Directly. Honestly. Without qualification. He is worthy of being called an ace. That sentence will follow this season wherever it goes. It will be referenced when the awards are discussed, when the rotation decisions are analyzed, when the postseason arrives and the question of who takes the ball in the biggest moments has to be answered. Ohtani did not need Kershaw's validation to know what he is capable of. He has known that since long before this start, since long before this season, since the years of preparation and discipline and routine that built the pitcher standing on that mound right now. But for the rest of baseball, for the league, the media, the fans, the opposing lineups that will face him in the weeks ahead, Kershaw's verdict changes something. It makes official what the ERA has been whispering and the strikeout totals have been suggesting and the 7-inning performances have been building toward all season. Shohei Ohtani is not returning to the top of baseball. He is already there. And if the ERA stays below 1.00, if the 8 strikeout performances keep coming, the conversation will stop being about whether he belongs among the best. It will be about how far above them he actually is.